This is unprecedented. This is unacceptable. And this is about to make you furious. The Royal Rumble 2026, one of WWE's most iconic pay-per-views, the event that kicks off the road to WrestleMania, the show that has never been cancelled or postponed in its entire history, is now being postponed, and the reason why is going to absolutely infuriate you. But that's just the beginning of this disaster. The Rock, the People's Champion, the final boss, the biggest star WWE has ever produced, just suffered a massive loss that nobody saw coming, and the implications of this are going to shake WWE to its very foundation. And if you thought the fan backlash against WWE was bad before, John Cena just went on record addressing it, and what he said is either going to make you respect him more, or it's going to make you realize that even he doesn't understand what fans actually want anymore. I'm not holding back today. I'm about to tell you exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and why every single wrestling fan should be absolutely livid right now. And by the end of this video, you're either going to be in the comments defending WWE's catastrophic decisions, or you're going to be as angry as I am. Let's get into it. The Royal Rumble postponement is where we need to start, because this is legitimately shocking. For those who don't know, the Royal Rumble has been a staple of WWE's calendar since 1988. 38 years of tradition. Through recessions, through pandemics, through roster changes, through everything, the Royal Rumble has happened every single January without fail. It's the event that creates WrestleMania dreams. It's where careers are made. It's where legends return. It's where the road to WrestleMania officially begins. And now, according to multiple reports that broke just recently, WWE is postponing the 2026 Royal Rumble, potentially pushing it back several weeks or even into February. And the reason they are giving? Logistical complications and scheduling conflicts. Are you kidding me right now? Let me break down why this is absolutely unacceptable. First of all, WWE is a multi-billion-dollar company. They were just acquired by Endeavor. They've got Saudi Arabia money, they've got Netflix money, they've got more resources than they've ever had in their entire history. And you're telling me that with all of that power, all of those resources, all of that infrastructure, they can't figure out how to hold the Royal Rumble on its traditional date? But here's what's really going on, and this is what nobody's talking about. The postponement isn't about logistics. It's about The Rock. It's about Hollywood scheduling. It's about WWE once again bending over backwards to accommodate a part-timer at the expense of the fans who show up every single week. According to insider reports, The Rock has a major film commitment that conflicts with the original Royal Rumble date, and rather than do the Rumble without him, rather than let the full-time roster carry the event like they are more than capable of doing, WWE is pushing back one of their biggest shows of the year to fit The Rock's schedule. Let that sink in. The entire Royal Rumble, an event that affects dozens of wrestlers, thousands of fans who already bought tickets, millions of viewers who planned their schedules around it, is being moved because one man can't make it. Here's a question for the comments. Do you think WWE should ever postpone a major pay-per-view to accommodate a part-timer's schedule, or should the show always go on as planned? Let me know what you think, because I'm genuinely curious if anyone can defend this. And this leads us directly into The Rock's massive loss, because karma has a funny way of working itself out. So while WWE is literally rearranging their entire calendar to accommodate The Rock, he just suffered one of the biggest professional losses of his career. His latest film, which was supposed to be a massive blockbuster, which had a huge budget, which was being positioned as one of the tentpole releases of the year, just bombed at the box office. And I'm not talking about underperforming. I'm talking about catastrophic, career-questioning, studio-panicking failure. The film opened to less than half of what was projected. Critics tore it apart. Audiences gave it terrible scores. And the box office projections show that it's going to lose the studio a massive amount of money. This is The Rock's first legitimate flop in years, and it's happening at the worst possible time. Now, why does this matter to WWE? Because The Rock's entire value proposition to WWE has been his star power from Hollywood. He's supposed to bring mainstream attention. He's supposed to draw eyes from casual fans who don't normally watch wrestling. He's supposed to be this crossover megastar who elevates everything he touches. But if his movies are flopping, if audiences are rejecting him, if his star power is diminishing, then what exactly is WWE getting by postponing the Royal Rumble for him? What are they getting by giving him top spots on WrestleMania? What are they getting by pushing full-time talent to the side to make room for someone whose own projects are failing? The answer is nothing. They are getting nothing except angry fans and disrupted schedules. And here's the worst part, The Rock's representatives are already trying to spin this. They are already putting out statements about how the film was experimental and how it was always going to be divisive and how box office doesn't reflect quality. But we all know what this really is. This is damage control. This is Hollywood spin. This is what happens when someone who's been untouchable for a decade suddenly becomes very, very touchable. WWE needs to wake up and realize that The Rock in 2026 is not The Rock of 2015. The landscape has changed. The audience has changed. And most importantly, the full-time roster has evolved to the point where they don't need The Rock to draw anymore. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, these people are legitimate stars who show up every single week and deliver. They don't need a part-timer to validate them. But speaking of validation and fan reactions, let's talk about what John Cena just said about the fan backlash, because this is where things get really interesting. John Cena, in a recent interview, addressed the growing fan backlash against WWE's creative decisions, the part-timer situation, and the overall direction of the company. And I've got to say, what he said was fascinating, but also kind of troubling depending on how you interpret it. Cena basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that fans need to trust the process and that WWE knows what they are doing because they've been doing this for decades. He talked about how fans don't always see the big picture, how creative decisions that seem bad in the moment often pay off in the long run, and how the company has weathered criticism before and always come out stronger. Now, on one hand, John Cena has earned the right to say this. He's a 16-time world champion, he's been the face of WWE for over a decade, he's seen the business from every possible angle. When John Cena talks about wrestling, you listen, because he knows what he's talking about. But on the other hand, this response feels incredibly dismissive of legitimate fan concerns. Because here's the thing, fans have been trusting the process. Fans have been patient. Fans have been watching week after week, hoping that things would get better, hoping that their favorite wrestlers would get opportunities, hoping that storylines would pay off in satisfying ways. And what have they gotten? They've gotten the Royal Rumble postponed for a part-timer. They've gotten full-time talent pushed aside. They've gotten convoluted booking that prioritize shock value over storytelling. They've gotten dream matches turned into overbooked messes. At what point does trust the process become code for stop complaining and accept whatever we give you? Here's another question for you to answer in the comments. Do you agree with John Cena that fans should trust WWE's creative process, or do you think fan criticism is valid and necessary? I really want to hear your thoughts on this one. But let me give John Cena some credit here, because he also said something that I think is really important. He acknowledged that the business is different now than it was when he started. He acknowledged that fans have more access to information, more platforms to voice their opinions, and more power to influence the product than ever before. And he said that WWE needs to listen to that feedback, even if they don't always act on it. That's the John Cena I respect. That's the guy who understands that wrestling is a dialogue between the performers and the audience, not a lecture from the performers to the audience. The problem is, WWE doesn't seem to be listening, because if they were listening, they would know that fans are tired of part-timers derailing the calendar. They would know that fans want to see the Royal Rumble on its traditional date with the full-time roster getting their moment. They would know that fans are skeptical of The Rock's return because we've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. Now let's connect all three of these stories, because they are all symptoms of the same disease, WWE's inability to commit to long-term storytelling and star building. Postponing the Royal Rumble shows that WWE is still willing to disrupt their entire schedule for short-term star power instead of trusting their full-time talent. The Rock's box office failure proves that even megastars aren't bulletproof and that WWE needs to stop banking everything on part-time appearances. And John Cena's comments, while well-intentioned, reveal a disconnect between what the company thinks fans want and what fans are actually asking for. The solution to all of this is so simple that it's almost painful. Stop postponing major events. Stop relying on part-timers to carry your biggest shows. Start investing in the full-time roster who bust their asses 52 weeks a year. Start listening to fan feedback not as noise to be dismissed, but as valuable insight into what's working and what's not. The Royal Rumble should happen when it's supposed to happen. If The Rock can't make it, you know what? That's okay. Run the Rumble with the incredible roster you already have. Give someone like LA Knight or Gunther or Rhea Ripley that WrestleMania moment. Create a new star instead of recycling old ones. And to John Cena's point about trusting the process, trust works both ways. WWE needs to trust that their audience is smart enough to recognize good storytelling from bad booking. They need to trust that full-time wrestlers can carry major events without part-timer insurance policies. They need to trust that building for the future is more important than clinging to the past. Here's one final question for the comments, and this is the big one. If you were running WWE right now, would you postpone the Royal Rumble for The Rock, or would you run it as scheduled and build a new star instead? And be honest, because this is the fundamental question that's going to define WWE's future. Look, I'm not saying The Rock should never come back. I'm not saying John Cena doesn't have valuable perspective, and I'm not saying WWE is beyond saving. What I am saying is that these three stories represent a pattern of decision-making that prioritize the wrong things. WWE has the talent, they have the resources, they have the platform. What they need now is the courage to commit to their full-time roster, the wisdom to recognize when fan criticism is valid, and the integrity to keep their commitments to fans instead of constantly shifting things around to accommodate Hollywood schedules. The Royal Rumble 2026 should not be postponed. The Rock's loss should be a wake-up call that part-timer reliance is a failing strategy, and John Cena's comments, while appreciated, should be the beginning of a conversation, not the end of one. WWE can fix this. The question is whether they will fix it, or whether they'll keep making the same mistakes over and over again until fans finally stop caring altogether. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you as angry about the Royal Rumble postponement as I am? Do you think The Rock's failure changes his value to WWE? And do you agree or disagree with John Cena's take on fan backlash? Smash that like button if this video fired you up, subscribe to Wrestling Zone 1 for more honest wrestling analysis that doesn't pull punches, and hit that notification bell because you know we're going to be all over these developing stories. This is Wrestling Zone 1, and I'll see you in the next one.